Welcome to Daf Yomi 1 week at a time, Masechet Avodah Zarah. This is our 10th class, and I think we have one more class next week, and we finish the Masechet, which is really exciting. Today we are going to be reviewing Daf 64 through 70, and we are going to continue discussing the concept of Yayin Nesech. If you remember, Yayin Nesech is wine that was used as a libation, poured out or mixed with the intent of serving idolatry. And we learned last week that we're not allowed to benefit. First of all, as we know, we're not allowed to benefit from anything that has to do with idolatry. But we're also not allowed to benefit from the wages that a person yayin nesech, which again, which is idolatry. So the Gemara now again, as I've mentioned numerous times, when I use the word non-Jew, here I do not mean a regular non-Jew Bob who lives next door. I mean a pagan, someone who worships idolatry. If a non-Jew, an idolater, hired a Jew to break barrels of yain nesech, or to work with, to break barrels of yain nesech. So the question is, can he keep the wages? Now, on one hand, we say, oh, it's great. He's actually breaking the barrels. So because he's like wasting the wine, then he should be able to keep the wages. And so that's the question, right? Are you allowed to benefit from it? So Daf 64, the Gemara discusses the concept of kilayim. If you remember, kilayim is when one plants two different species together. We are not allowed to do that. So it says that you are allowed to uproot kilayim with a non-Jew. So now again, you're uprooting it, so you're destroying it. And you're allowed to do it, meaning you're allowed to keep the wages. So now the Gemara says that it's not clear, right? Because if you maintain kilayim, right? If you, let's say, prune it or trim it, you actually get lashes. And maybe not only if you improve it, even if you just maintain it, it would be problematic. What about giving a gift to one opinion is that you are not allowed to give a gift to an idolater, but again, to get rid of kilayim, that you can do even if it's for free, because you're destroying something that is forbidden. Let's say a non-Jew sold an idol. So is the money forbidden or not? Right? What does that mean? He's getting money for the idol, so one would think that it would be forbidden. But if a non-Jew sells an idol, it shows that he doesn't believe in that idol, and therefore maybe it's okay, right? So one opinion, so the Gemara says it's actually okay because the non-Jew is getting rid of his idol. Therefore, if he's getting rid of the idol, then it is okay. Let's say a person is converting. Again, the idolater is converting to Judaism, so he needs to sell his, and they can convert. And then the money that they get is permissible, because the idea is that when they sell their idols, they are negating it, right? They're saying it doesn't have any power. Therefore, you can get benefit from that money. Now, if a non-Jew sold their idol to pay back a loan to a Jew, so then the Jew is allowed to accept that money. But if he says, right, wait for me till I sell my idol and then I'll give you the money, so then that's forbidden, because the Jew wants him to sell the idol. So the Jew is actually getting a benefit from the fact that the non-Jew sold the idol, and that is problematic. Let's say you have two brothers. One converted; they were non-Jews. One converted and one stayed non-Jew. So the convert can say, and now they have to split the inheritance. So the convert can say to his brother, "You take the yayin nesech and the idols, and I'll take all the permissible stuff, right? The chairs and the table and the couch." So he's allowed to do that. We don't say that that's benefiting from the idolatry, but if he already received it, so now, right, they can't redivide it afterwards, because then he really is getting benefit from these idols. Right, it shows that he wants those things to exist. Right, another option is actually, even if it's broken, right, things might still be worth money, and therefore maybe that is a different case. Or another opinion is that inheritance for a convert is a very different case, that Rabbanan, the sages, make regret converting, right? If you tell a convert, "Oh, welcome to Judaism. By the way, you can't inherit anything from your father," right? We're concerned that the convert is going to say, "Oh, what did I do? Forget it. I'm going back," right? So, interestingly, the sages made a leniency that the inheritance can be divided. Okay, now we're going to learn about a ger toshav, which literally means a convert who lives with you. Toshav means a resident. So the resident convert. What is this? First, the Gemara tells us, can a ger, we're going to talk about what he is or she is in a minute. But the Gemara asks, can a ger toshav nullify avodah zarah, right? Can he or sorry, 1 second. Can he or she nullify idolatry? So he is a non-Jew, right? It's not someone who converted fully, but on the other hand, they do not do idolatry. Meaning, it's a non-Jew who lives in your community, who did not convert to Judaism, but does not do idolatry. So maybe only if he serves idolatry can he nullify it. Maybe if they serve a different idol, they can even nullify a different one. And now the Gemara discusses what is a ger toshav. So we're going to see they accept upon themselves in front of 3 people that they are not going to do idolatry. Another is that they accept upon themselves that they're going to do all 7 Noachide laws, right? Sheva mitzvot b'nei Noach, or they keep all the mitzvot except for a certain one, which is eating nevelot, eating like dead animals, like carcasses or things that weren't shechted with shchita. So those are 3 different opinions on what is a ger toshav. We say that you can leave wine with a ger toshav for a short amount of time, but you can't store the wine with him for a long period of time. And we're going to talk more about this in a little bit. Their oil is like their, again, the way we said it, right? Short term versus long term. Or no, his wine is like his oil, meaning you can't eat from his oil or his wine, but we don't assume that it is yain nesech. Or another opinion is we do assume that their wine is yain nesech. Or the last opinion is maybe you can even drink their wine, because again, they do not do idolatry. And right, therefore, if that is the case and you can drink their wine, maybe they can nullify an idol. Or no, it means that he can nullify, when we're talking about nullifying, he can nullify his domain in the courtyard like a Jew, but it doesn't mean that he can nullify an idol. Okay, daf 65. A ger toshav doesn't idolatry, and you can give them presents if you know that he doesn't do idolatry, because we see him again as not as an idolater. Okay, now what is ger toshav? Another opinion, right? For 12 months, a ger toshav, if they didn't do circumcision, a brit milah, then they go back to being like a regular Jew. Again, obviously the males. Or no, only if they originally said, oh, right now I'm going to be a ger toshav, but my goal is to fully convert. And then if he doesn't, then you see that he didn't really want to convert in the end, and therefore he reverts to an idolater or a non-Jew. Okay, Bar Sheshach, we're going to have a few stories today. So Bar Sheshach was a non-Jew who didn't do idolatry, and Rava sent him. In the world to come, we're actually going to receive great reward, right? Better than the pleasures of this world. And we are not going to fear mortal kings. And at that moment, Bar Sheshach was actually summoned to the king, and he tried to give a blessing to Rava, but it was actually a very strange blessing, and therefore he actually, like, it went back on him and he actually was blinded. It's actually like a very crazy story. Next, on daf 65, if a Jew was working for a non-Jew, and at the end of the day, the non-Jew asked him to move a barrel of yain nesech, the wages of that day are permissible, because again, he was hired to do a whole day's work, and in the last 5 minutes, he moves one barrel. He did, and he's allowed to get those wages. But if it happens in the middle of the day, that's actually not okay, and he cannot get the wages for that day. Let's say he was asked, a Jew was asked to move 100 barrels of wine for 100 prutot, right? It's like saying $100 for 100 barrels of wine. So if one of those barrels is yain nesech, it is asur, and because they were all grouped together, right? And he took the job knowing that he was going to be moving yain nesech, therefore he cannot get the wages for that day. But if he says to him, I need you to move these bottles, I'm going to pay you $1 for every barrel that you move. Then, because they're individuals, so again, so he doesn't get that $1, but he gets 99 other dollars. Okay, let's say a person rents a donkey to drive around, right, to sit. He can put all his things on a donkey that he needs for the trip. This is not about yain nesech yet. We're going to get there. This is actually, it's very interesting, right? It's like talking about if I, right, generally in those days, the donkey is like a pickup truck, or like the, what's it called, with the mover, U-Haul, right? So what would you do? So not like today where you hook it up to your car and you drive it. Basically, it came with a driver. So you hired a donkey and the donkey driver. Now, the donkey has limited capacity of what he can schlep, what he can carry. So the Gemara tells us that the person who hired the donkey on that donkey and whatever he needs for that trip up to 3 days, right? If they're going for 2 weeks, the person cannot put 2 weeks worth of food on the donkey. That's just impossible. You can't schlep that much. It's not fair to the donkey. So up to 3 days of supplies. The donkey driver can put the things that he needs for that day. And then when they get to the pit stop right at night, the donkey driver now has to go buy new things for the next day. So every day, the donkey driver is going to buy new things. Therefore, this shows that you can even put the wine flask on the donkey. And therefore, if he puts yayin nesech, he shouldn't be able to get money from that transaction. So the Gemara says, no, it's not connected to the rental price, right? Generally, when you hire a U-Haul, you hire it for the you could put this in this, but not in that, right? You could put your table, but not your chairs. That's not how it works. It's all inclusive, and the flask is not necessarily included in the rental price, and therefore it is okay. Okay, next Mishnah on Daf 65. Let's say, okay, so now we're going to learn very important concepts that have to do with what's called in Hebrew ta'arovet, which are mixtures. Mixtures of different types of food, generally one that is permitted with one that is forbidden, right? So meat and milk, kosher, non-kosher. Okay, so we're going to learn different principles about these mixtures. Okay, so the Mishnah tells us, let's say you have yayin nesech, again, forbidden wine, fell onto grapes. Okay, so then you just wash off the grapes, right? Grapes are solid things. You just wash it off. That's it, and then you can eat them. If the grapes were cracked, so then they are forbidden because we assume that the yayin nesech got absorbed into the grapes, and now the grapes have, I want to say the flavor, but hold off on the word flavor, but they absorbed some of the yayin nesech, which is forbidden, and therefore you cannot eat those grapes. If the yayin nesech fell on figs or dates, again, if it gives a flavor, okay, we're going to use the word ta'am. Ta'am is flavor. So then if it gives flavor to the figs or the dates, so then it is forbidden. Okay, this is a principle that if the forbidden food gives a flavor, permissible food, forbidden, right? Think about it, right? If I don't know, ham fell into your, cereal and milk, and now your cereal and milk tastes like ham, or even if it's kosher meat, whatever it is. If it has the flavor of whatever was forbidden, that makes it forbidden. Okay, but we're going to get into more details in a minute. There is another parameter. Okay, however, right, so now here is the rule. I'll say it in Hebrew, and then I'll say it in English. In Hebrew, it's called noten ta'am l'shevach. If the food, the forbidden food, gives the flavor and it makes the entire dish better, so then it's forbidden, right? Because you just made the permissible food taste better, but taste like the non-kosher, the forbidden thing. If it's noten ta'am lifgam, lifgam means to ruins the food, then it is permissible. Now, don't worry, there's going to be more variables. And therefore, the Mishnah says, right, if vinegar falls on beans, because the vinegar has a sour taste, and it ruins the flavor of the beans, you can eat the beans, even though the vinegar was yain nesech or forbidden. Okay, but don't worry, we're going to explain this more. So now the Gemara says, right? Let's say yain nesech fell on a barrel of wheat. You are allowed to sell it to a non-Jew. Okay, that's the statement. So now, but let's say you have a garment and in it is shatnez. If you remember, shatnez is kilayim. It is when you have wool and linen threads that are mixed together. That is forbidden. But let's say you don't know where that thread is in the entire garment. You cannot sell it to a garment to a Jew, but you can make it into burial shrouds because no one's going to dig up the body and use the burial shrouds. Actually, not only because it's gross, but it's actually forbidden to benefit from anything that is associated with a dead body, and therefore no one will use it, and that's what you can use it for. Okay, so now the Gemara says, wait a minute, how can you sell the wheat that the wine fell on to a non-Jew, right? Maybe the non-Jew will grind up the wheat, bake it, and then sell the bread, and right, we don't know what's going to happen with that bread. So the Gemara says, you're right, it is actually a challenge. Okay, we said that we can wash off the grapes. So now, why can't you wash off the wheat? Remember, what's the difference? So the Gemara says, no, if you know what wheat looks like, it actually has a crack down the middle, and that crack absorbed, and therefore it becomes forbidden. Okay, Daf 66 tells us that there's actually, it depends what type of wine fell on the grapes. Okay, there are two types of wine. Old wine, which we would call, I guess, right, aged wine, as opposed to new wine, which is closer to grape juice. Okay, so old wine that falls on grapes, it depends if it gives flavor. Okay, because now we're going to learn, hold on a minute. Okay, I'll say it. Okay, I'll say it now, but we're going to see it in the Gemara in a minute. There's another principle, which is called min bimino, which means, min means like a species or a type, right? So if I have kosher beef and not kosher beef, okay, that would be called min bimino. It's mixing the same thing. One is forbidden and one is permissible. And we're going to see that when you mix two of the same things, there is no nullification because the flavor is the same flavor, right? Kosher beef and non-kosher beef. I'm not talking about pork versus beef. Kosher beef versus non-kosher beef is still going to taste like beef. Therefore, the flavor is not significant because it's the same flavor. And therefore, even if a little amount fell in, it does not get nullified, right? The word is bitul. There is no bitul or batul. There is no bitul in min bimino. Then we're going to learn min she'eno. Thing falls into something that is very different, right? So your milk fell into your chicken soup. Milk is very different than chicken soup. Or again, right? Non-kosher, yeah, let's just leave it like that. Okay, two separate things that have different flavor. When they have different flavor, now we're going to talk about what is the flavor that it imparts. And therefore, if it improves it, it would be forbidden. If it makes it worse, it would be permissible. Don't worry. At the end, we're going to talk about percentage, right? The famous concept of batal b'shishim, which means nullified in one part in every 60. We're going to talk about that in a minute, okay? But it's important to understand that it's not always 1 in 60, and that's what we're learning now. Okay, 1 second. So what's the point? Okay, the point here is that old wine tastes like wine. Grapes taste like grapes. Those are two different things, right? We all know that aged wine does not taste like grapes. Now, what about new wine? New wine, right, or maybe grape juice, tastes a lot more like grapes, even though we had a conversation in our shir and some people said, like, I can drink grape juice, but I can't eat grapes. So she was saying that there is a different flavor, but okay, let's say it's very similar in flavor. Okay, so now we're going to have a machloket. Okay, so new wine, remember we said old wine falls on grapes if it gives it flavor, so then it is forbidden. New wine, again, all of this wine is yain nesach, right? It's forbidden, it's falling on regular grapes, doesn't make the grapes forbidden. Okay, so now, new wine. Abaye said makes it forbidden, right? Which means that if he says even a little bit makes it forbidden, it's because they have the same flavor, right? New wine, grapes have a similar flavor. Therefore, if it gives even a little bit of a flavor, it is forbidden. Rava says, no, it's only forbidden if you can actually taste the difference. Why? Because he says, and we'll see it in a minute, he says we go, right, we're going to see it's a machloket. Do we go according to the name or do we go according to the flavor? Okay, so new wine or grape juice, right? We'll call it new wine and grapes. Those have different names or titles, but similar flavor, right? So do we go according to the flavor and therefore it's min bimino, it's the same thing? Or do we go according to the name, wine, grapes, and therefore it's min b'she'eno. Therefore, it's going to be about how much flavor it gives off. Okay, that's a summary. Now let's look at the Gemara, right? So again, Abaye goes according to the flavor, and therefore grapes and new wine have the same flavor. Therefore, it's min bimino, and even if it's a little bit, it's forbidden. Rava goes according to the name. One is grapes and one is wine. Therefore, they're different. Therefore, we go according to how much flavor it gives off. And then we say that, go back to the Mishnah that just said, yain nesach falls on grapes. It didn't say what kind of wine. It didn't say old and it didn't say new. So we have a machloket, is our Mishnah talking about new wine or old wine? Now the Gemara brings other cases that have a similar machloket that is forbidden, and it gets mixed with beer vinegar. Is there any? I don't know if there's a name for that, but vinegar that's made out of beer versus vinegar that's made out of wine. So now again, they're both called vinegar, but they taste very different. So again, right? What about if you have like sourdough starter, like leaven, and one is from wheat and one is from barley? Again, different flavor, same name, right? They're both sourdough starters. So again, there's a discussion. Do we go according to the flavor or do we go according to the name? Okay, now we're going to go okay, now we're going to go into another topic, which is also very important and fascinating. So first the Gemara talks about spices. And if you put in 3 different spices that are black pepper and I don't know, whatever pepper, so they have the same name, but they're like a different type. They all combine. And we see here that we go according to the flavor and not according to the name. Okay, next case. You have forbidden vinegar that falls into kosher wine. Okay, now again, probably like red wine vinegar into wine. Now, here, again, we're going to have a machloket. We go according to the flavor. And if it gives a little bit of the flavor, so then it is forbidden. But if the wine falls into, right, forbidden wine falls into permissible vinegar, it is forbidden even with a little bit. So now the Gemara says, wait a minute, what is going on? So, which is the concept of an aroma, a smell, right? We know that vinegar has a very strong smell. And therefore, the Gemara says that when wine falls into vinegar, I don't think that this is true chemically, but it's interesting. The Gemara says that when the wine falls into the vinegar, before it even touches the vinegar, the fumes are so strong, it changes the wine into vinegar. And then like the wine already smells like vinegar. And therefore it's like vinegar falling into vinegar. And then it's right, only a little bit, right, will make it forbidden. Or maybe the aroma of maybe the thing has the aroma of vinegar, but it tastes like wine, and therefore it's two different things. And therefore, it depends on the taste that we're talking about aroma. Now we're going to talk about the smell of things, and this is just brilliant because we've discussed that you're not allowed to drink yayin nesach. We talked about you're not allowed to move yayin nesach or work with yayin nesach. What about smell, right? Right, when you smell something, on one hand, you're doing an action and you smell something. On the other hand, there's nothing really there, right? So what is the law about smell? So the Gemara talks about that if a non-Jew smells the Jew's wine, it's permissible. It doesn't make it into yain nesach. But, right, can a Jew smell the non-Jew's wine? So we say that it is forbidden because there's actually something forbidden about the smell of benefit, therefore it is forbidden. Or another opinion is it is permissible because aroma isn't really real. There's nothing there. So that is just like a fascinating discussion. The Gemara talks about putting hot bread on a barrel of truma wine, right? We know that hot bread, right? If you ever put like garlic on your hot bread, it like absorbs flavor. So if you put hot bread on a barrel, it's going to absorb the flavor of the wine, which is truma, and therefore would be forbidden for a non-Kohen to eat the bread. So then another opinion is that it is permissible. So the Gemara says maybe the machloket is about the smell, right? It's absorbing this aroma. And therefore the Gemara says, right, the aroma is real. The case, if the barrel is open and the bread is hot, everybody agrees it's forbidden. If the bread is cold and the barrel is closed, everybody agrees that it's permissible. But if it's a closed barrel and hot bread, or an open barrel with cold bread, that is a machloket. Okay, now on Daf 67, sorry, one second. Okay, Daf 67 talks about giving a bad taste, tam lifgam, right? If something ruins the food, so then it is permissible to eat it. But it's only if this is the only reason that you can't eat it, right? So if you already, didn't put salt in or put in too much salt, and now something forbidden, fell into it, not That is not okay. The next principle is a shiur, a measurement, which is how long, when we're talking about eating a kazait, how long do you have to eat that kazait? Again, kazait is the amount of an olive. So in Hebrew, the amount is called kazait kedei achilat pras. You have to eat an olive's volume in the time it takes to eat half a loaf of bread. Now, I don't think it means a ginormous loaf of bread. I think it was, a smaller loaf. If you eat a kazait in this amount of time, that is considered eating. If not, if it takes you longer, that's not considered eating. Okay. All right. Some say that this concept of giving a bad flavor, Rabbi Meir holds that if it gives a bad flavor, even though it's a bad flavor, it's still forbidden. And he learns it from the pots of the idolaters that have flavor of non-kosher food. And even if it's bad, it's still forbidden. So according to Rabbi Meir, that is the case. Now it's another concept, which is the concept of ben yomo. Ben yomo means was the pot used that day, right? So if it was used that day, it is more problematic. If it was used more than 24 hours ago, we assume that the flavor that's in the walls is gross already, right? Leftover cholent pot the next day is gross, right? So then that's ta'am lifgam, right? Again, it add flavor. Okay, daf 68. We have a machloket if originally the food made it better, but then it ruined it, right? Again, something falls into something else, it gets better, and then it gets bad. So what do we do with that, right? So, but if it ruined it from the beginning, everyone agrees that that is okay. Okay. Now let's talk about this sourdough starter, which is called seor, seor in the Torah. So sourdough starter that fell into dough, right? If it's strong enough to make it rise, that's one thing. Then that was permissible starter. Now, starter of truma or kilayim, right? Something that a regular person can't eat from. If it falls in afterwards and it's enough to make it rise, it's forbidden. But if it ruins it from the beginning, so now there's a machloket if it is forbidden or not. Right? There's a concept of like I don't know what the word is, too much starter, too much leavening is not good for the dough. And therefore, if it ruins it, that's the machloket if it is permissible or forbidden. Okay, now the Gemara has a list of cases, okay? Starter of truma and chulin and permissible starter fell into the dough, and each is enough to make the dough rise. The whole thing is forbidden. Truma starter fell in first, right? So that's asur, that's forbidden, because it fell in first. If the chulin, the permissible starter, fell in first, now and then afterwards the truma. So one opinion is that it is permissible. Okay. Then there's a crazy case at the bottom of I say respectfully, at the bottom of daf 68, which is what happens if a mouse falls into a barrel of beer? Are you allowed to drink the beer? Believe it or not, there's actually a machloket if it gives a bad flavor to the beer or a good flavor to the beer. Please do not try this at home. Actually, the Gemara makes a distinction between city mice and country mice. There's actually another option that maybe the mouse was cut up into pieces, and that's the problem. Feel free to look. It's at the bottom of 68 and the top of 69. Okay. And here at the top of 69, the Gemara talks about ratios, percentage of how much fell into what. So if, again, we're talking about a case where flavor matters, if, right, and in general, this is the source, that if it is something that is falling into something that's different, what's called min she'eno b'mino, then it is what we call batel b'shishim, batel b'shishim. So if it's less, or right, if it's less than 1 part in every 60, right, a drop of milk falls into a huge batch of chicken soup, generally that is not a problem because it is so teeny tiny and there's so much chicken soup that it becomes nullified. Again, don't add a drop of milk to your chicken soup. It doesn't work like that. But if it happens to, fall in, again, I'm not poskening your, everyone should ask their local Orthodox rabbi. That is the case. Okay, next Mishnah. We are now going to have 4 cases. Okay, the non-Jew was moving wine with the Jew. Okay, it's Jewish wine, it's kosher wine. Non-Jew is helping to move it. If the wine has a chazaka, it has a, Zohar, help me out. It has we assume that it is being watched, that it is kosher, so then it is okay. If the Jew said, listen, can you finish up this work? I just have to go get something from my house. I'll be right back. So if he's gone in the amount of time that it takes for the non-Jew to make a hole in the barrel, drink some wine, reseal the barrel, or the amount of time to remove the entire top and then make a new top, wine is forbidden. Next case, a Jew leaves wine in a wagon or in a boat, and he leaves for a short amount of time. So because he doesn't tell him how long he's going to be gone, it is permissible. If he tells him, hey, you know what, I need to go for an hour, I'll be back at 4 o'clock, so then that is problematic. If in that time he could have opened the barrel and resealed it. And we're going to talk about how he does that. Next case, a Jew left the non-Jew in his store. If the Jew says, I just have to go get something, I'll be right back, and we don't know when he's coming back, this in the world of kashrut is called yotzeh v'nichnas. Many mashgichim work this way, right? Where someone says, I'll be around sometime tomorrow, I'm not sure when, to check that everything is, kosher. Because I don't give you a time, you have no idea when I'm coming. They're correctly because you don't know when I'm coming. So then it is permissible. But if he says, right, I'll be back in an hour, and it's enough time to reopen and reseal the barrel, it's problematic. Last case, the Jew was eating with a non-Jew at the table, and the Jew walked away and left open pitchers of wine on the table, and he left wine in the liquor cabinet. So whatever is on the table is forbidden. Whatever's in the liquor cabinet is permissible. We assume that your non-Jewish guest is not going to go to your liquor cabinet. However, if you said, help yourself to whatever you see, now it is problematic, and therefore we assume that he drank from it and it is problematic. Okay, the Gemara talks about all the different cases that we had. So why do we need all the different? The idea is we want the non-Jew to be afraid or be concerned that the Jew can come back at any point. and therefore he's not going to touch anything because he doesn't know when he's going to be coming back, right? So the Gemara talks about, well, if it's on a boat, maybe the Jew can watch from the harbor and he can see what's happening without him seeing him. But let's say in a store, he can close the door and you can't see. The Gemara talks about, let's talk about resealing the barrel, right? There were two ways that they sealed barrels or closed barrels. One was with plaster and one was with clay, right? Plaster, when it's wet and when it's dry, it's the same color. However, clay is different color, right? When it's wet, it's darker. When it's and when it's dry, it's lighter. So again, if it's going to be noticeable, therefore we assume that he didn't open the barrel. Therefore, we assume that the wine is okay. But the opposite is not, right? Is not the case. Okay, now Daf 70, we actually have 12 stories about non-Jews touching wine. Okay, so story number one, non-Jew went to a Jew's house with wine, and then again, the Jew had wine in his house. Non-Jew goes to the house and locks the door. But there's a hole in the door and you could see in. So any barrels that are right in your eye line, right in your sight line of vision, those are permissible. But anything on the sides that you can't see, you don't know if he touched it or not. Next, Jew's wine is in a house. The Jew lives. Okay. The Jew lives downstairs. All of a sudden, they hear a commotion outside, and everybody goes out. And then the non-Jew goes back to his house first, but he thinks that the non-Jew went home already. Therefore, we don't have to assume that he went upstairs and touched his wine. Next, a hotel with Jewish wine, and you find a non-Jew right with the barrels. If he can get in trouble like a thief, hey, what are you doing there? This is a private area. So then we say that he's not going to touch it, and therefore it is permissible. But if he's not going to get in trouble, so maybe he touched it, and therefore it is forbidden. Next, a house with Jewish wine, and you found a non-Jew there, right? This is a little different than the hotel. If he has an excuse to be there, so then it's forbidden, right? Because he feels that he has a right to be there, therefore he can do whatever he wants. If he doesn't have an excuse, then it is permissible. Next, a Jew and a non-Jew are drinking wine together. Oh, wait a minute, I have to go to Mincha. So then it's permissible to come back and drink whatever was at the table, as long as the non-Jew doesn't know how long davening is, which I thought was so funny, right? I'll be right back. I don't know if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? We know how long davening is. If they don't know how long davening is, we assume that he doesn't touch it. Next, non-Jew and Jews sitting on a boat, and they heard a siren that it's almost Shabbat, and the Jew got off the boat. So then the wine that's there is permissible because the non-Jew thinks that maybe the Jew is going to get back on the ship on Shabbat. Now, the Gemara tells us that really a Jew is not allowed to get onto a ship on Shabbat, but the non-Jew doesn't know that, or he thinks that maybe he doesn't keep Shabbat. It's a very interesting case. Next, there's a lion by the wine press, and the non-Jew goes and hides. And right, so we say that the wine is permissible because the Jew probably also in the neighborhood, and he also went to run because there's a lion walking around. Just so you should know, there used to be lions in Israel, so this is very appropriate. Thieves came to Pumbedita, which is a city in Babel, and opened many barrels of wine. You are allowed to drink them. Interestingly enough, why? Because most thieves in Pumbedita were actually Jewish. So that's very sad, but don't go to Pumbedita because it sounds like you're going to get robbed. The same story happens in Nahardea. It is mutar. It's also mutar, but here it's because you're not sure if they were Jews, and they're maybe just thieves, so they're looking for treasure and they're not actually going to drink the wine, and therefore you can drink the wine. A young non-Jew was found with wine foam, like a toddler, let's say, with wine foam on her hand outside of the barrel, and therefore the contents inside are permissible, right? We don't assume that the 2-year-old climbed up and into the barrel. We assume that it came from the outside. 2 more. You found a non-Jewish general who opened many barrels of wine in Nahardea, again, another city in Bavel. We have a doubt. We're not sure if the wine was touched. And we're also not sure if the people in the army are Jewish, right, and therefore it's okay. Or maybe because so many were opened, we assume that they were looking for money and they weren't looking for wine, and therefore they didn't drink it. Okay, last story. A woman shopkeeper gave the key to her store to a non-Jewish woman. So you can drink the wine because she gave her the key to watch, not permission to go into the store. And the Gemara ends by saying that we are more stringent. If you remember, Am Haaretz is someone who does not keep all the mitzvot, and we're more concerned about an Am Haaretz touching pure produce or food, right, taharot, than a non-Jew touching wine and making it yain nesach. So it's interesting when we're talking about people touching different things and how stringent we are about those things. It seems that yain nesach is number 2, and Am Haaretz, who's a Jew who doesn't keep mitzvot, we're more concerned that he's going to touch something and make it impure. Okay, with that, we finish our penultimate shiur of Avodah Zarah. We have a few minutes, so I'm happy to answer some questions. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and drink. By the way, do you know that I can tell you're going to go off by the lilt in your voice? It actually changes. Okay. Now, people would hear aroma and think of something almost ethereal. But if you know the chemistry of smell, there is some entity of the substance that's coming off that's creating it. So that is a type of contamination. So that's easy to understand.
Right, exactly. Right. It's interesting because on one hand, right, there are receptors in our nose and we smell actual things. Yeah. But on the other hand, right, we can't touch it. We can't feel it. We can't pick it up. So that's right. It's interesting to think about, right, that concept. Actually, had the merit of Rev Rimon, who's the rabbi in our community, gave our group a class on Shabbat about this, and he mentioned bisamim. Now, most people for Havdalah use bisamim like a leaf, a clove. You use something that smells. So he said, what about like perfume, right, which is a liquid, but the app there. So he said that if it's synthetic, it's actually problematic. If it's natural, it could be problematic. And therefore, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but they sell here, at least here in Israel, like if they're going to sell like fragrance for bisamim, they usually put like the flower or the fruit in the bottle. And therefore, when you're smelling it, even though you're not really smelling the etrog or the flower, but there's something there. And therefore, it is okay to use that. So I thought it was just fascinating.
And to substantiate what I just said, I can taste smells, which is synergistic, but that's the most common one.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And it's interesting that the Gemara talks about it, right? If you smell something, it affects the taste of the thing. Yeah, right? So if it smells like vinegar, is it going to taste like vinegar? Or
yeah, for me it does.
What the Gemara is challenging.
I have an interesting story. When I was in 6th grade, our teacher did an experiment in front of the class, and actually I was the one who she did it on. She put a blindfold on my eyes, and she turned me around once, so I wouldn't get so dizzy, but just turned me around once. She let me smell a tangerine,
Yeah.
and she gave me an apple to eat.
Mhm.
Whoa.
And it's the same bracha, but she asked me, "What are you eating?" And I got
Whoa.
so confused because I
Right.
smelled the tangerine and the consistency, it wasn't a tangerine, and I could not identify that it was an apple, but it got me confused.
Wow.
What
Wow.
did you finally
Fascinating.
say?
I don't even remember. I just remember being confused. I probably said, I don't know, or something. I don't know. It was like I was just confused. And then she unblindfolded me and I saw what she did, and it was like, whoa. That was so
Wow.
strange.
Wow.
Yeah. But as
Wow.
you said, just one last thing,
Yes,
sorry,
Eleni.
Lenny, sorry. One last thing, just wanted to say that I've always been saying this. I've been saying this for years. I mean, it's only at least 25 years. Two things that are intangible, but we definitely know they're there, is smell and music.
Oh, yeah.
And if you
That's
think
for
about,
Eleni.
yes, and if you think about Pitum Aktoret, which is smell,
Right.
and
The
davening,
music.
Shir Malot, and everything is
Yeah.
in music. Both of them
Yeah.
are ways for us to worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they're intangible.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Because
like
the
that.
idea that we're
Thank you.
using all of our senses to worship
Mhm.
Hashem.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's really the
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That was,
Ilani, what
thank
do you want to add?
Thank you, Zohar. That was
Yeah, I just, can share again a complete confusion that I think you may have cleared up for me today. When I heard, even though you're going so fast, the words you chose, I think it explained it to me, but let me check. And that is that confusing area whereby, the mixture occurs and something has fallen in, like the mouse, goodness, something has fallen in that if it's so repugnant and it's strong in the taste, you can taste it, then it says it's permitted. And then it's if something small falls in, whatever, and you can't even tell, it still all tastes fine, it tastes good, then it is forbidden. So is this because, again, this idea of benefit? Is this because when it has become ruined, then it's like, well, if you can still stand to eat it, go ahead, you won't starve. Or I'm not benefiting because I hate it now.
Right.
And now it's okay. I mean, is that why? Because you would think that absolutely that horrible taste of that treif should
Right.
make it not.
Yes.
So is that why?
Yes. Yes. The idea is that it's actually ruining the food. And when food is ruined, the assumption is it's not food anymore. Right. So maybe, right, it's I don't want to call it, right, it's really like inedible, or it's disgusting. Because it's disgusting, it's not considered food. Now, again, we're talking about a mixture. So I'm not going to say that if you have a piece of pork and it's gross to you, you can't eat it, right? If that's not, again, we're talking about mixtures, and we're also talking about percentage of how much fell in. But it is important to recognize that flavor adds another dimension to it. So like, don't go out from here and be like, oh, right, if the pork is gross, so then I could just eat it. That's not what we're saying.
Don't worry. Okay.
Yeah. Back
Food.
to.
And now it's right. It's disgusting. Say again.
Well, yeah, back to smell again. We were cautioned to not pray anywhere there's a smell that is
Exactly.
absolutely repugnant. And that makes sense, right? Because then now you can't be joyful while you pray. But that's saying that would be forbidden to you. But here I could eat that defiled soup that
Okay,
is now repugnant, right? That's just amazing.
Can I talk to Lynn? Lynn,
Yes.
the rabbis tried to make it so easier for us to survive. And so that's why they opened it up. They didn't say you had to eat it, but they said you could. And there's times
Right.
where I have eaten things, I don't even remember some of the stuff that I've eaten just to survive. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my
Exactly.
little joke in the chat where they're talking about the beer that the mouse fell
Oh,
in,
yeah,
and they're
I
and they're
laughed at
making it permissible, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. They would
that.
do anything to save their beer.
Exactly.
Just a joke.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think
Exactly.
you mentioned about the repugnant smells. If you have a baby's diaper, you can't pray there. You can't dominate.
Right.
That
Right.
kind of thing. So yeah.
Exactly. Wow. Okay, wishing everyone
Thank you.
a
Thank you, Rebecca.
Shavua Tov.
Thank you.
And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will pick this up next week.
Yeah.
Same time and
Same
same day.
station.
Be'ezrat
Yeah,
Hashem.
same
Exactly.
Same station.
Bye,
All
bye.
right. Have a
Us
Shabbat
old
Shalom,
timers.
everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank